I wouldn't have been able to do the things that I've done without consistently pushing myself, without consistently doing things that were a little bit beyond what I'd done before, that were just a little bit harder, a little bit bigger.
I hope everybody's been enjoying the day. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, actually. Alex, it's great to have you here. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
So you get a little bit of a taste here. If you haven't seen the documentary, this was an Oscar award-winning documentary, by the way, in 2018. It's truly phenomenal to watch, and everybody should try and take the time to do that. And we had a couple of goals in asking you to join us here today, Alex. And so part of this, because people might ask, kind of, how does this all fit into everything else we're talking about today? And the truth is, almost as impressive as what you've done on the rock faces is the work that you've done with your foundation, and setting up the foundation as early as you did, and thinking the way that you did about the building out of some of your philanthropic work. And so we're going to get there and talk about that. But we got to spend just a couple minutes first on everything that we've seen up here and sort of what you've done, the feats that you've accomplished in rock climbing. So soloing is, for those of you who are not climbers, soloing is without the safety ropes, and it's something that not that many people do, and it requires, I'm gonna argue that there's a physical component to rock climbing which is very evident to everybody, and then yet there's a whole nother level of mental preparation and focus that is required for the stuff that we saw in the video and what you did there. And so I kind of want to start there, which is that from a mental preparation standpoint, how did you think about getting the focus to move into the world of soloing to begin with, and then to take on El Capitan? If you could just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, a little bit. So just to be clear, it's not as if I sort of transitioned to just free soloing.
Okay.
I mean, I still, free soloing, like the big ropeless climbs like that, are sort of like a special event for me, like the Super Bowl or the World Series or something, where a few times a year I might want to test myself in a way, or sort of push myself in that way. But most of the time I'm climbing with ropes, I'm climbing with partners. Like this morning I climbed to the gym, the Upper West Side. It wasn't that dangerous. It was actually, biking here from the Upper West Side was way more dangerous than the actual climbing today. So most of my climbing is relatively safe. And I think the mental preparation, in some ways, it's not even like I really prepared necessarily. It's just that I've steadily built up to it, steadily expanded my comfort zone, done harder things. I mean, the very first free solos that I ever did is, at this point, I think I was maybe 19, were relatively modest, like now they would feel totally trivial for me. They're short, low angle, like they're just easy. But at the time I was like, oh my God, I'm climbing ropeless, this is so intense. And from there, sort of built up, got more comfortable with it, got better at it. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's like as you get better at it, you're able to do harder things.
And were there times when you actually thought about, okay, mentally I have to be in a different place to be able to do this, and therefore these are rituals that I go through, or things that you did to try to teach yourself from a mental standpoint, or not so much?
Well, sort of, actually. So I mean, an interesting thing with El Cap specifically, so the film Free Solo is about free soloing El Capitan. Has anyone been to Yosemite? I assume many people have been to Yosemite. Yeah, so El Cap's 3,000-foot wall. It's like it's the best. It's the most inspiring wall in the world. And so when you talk about the mental focus and sort of overcoming fear and things like that, to me there are kind of two ways that you can overcome fear, like manage fear. There's the obvious way, when you're like, something is scary, so you turn up your loud rock music and you just go, here we go, and you just do it. And you sort of like suppress the fear and just try to get it done before you get too afraid. And that's doable to a point, like that'll get you a certain ways, and that's useful sometimes in life. But there are a lot of things in life where that's just not gonna get it done. It's like, because that can give you a little dose of like overcoming your fear for a moment. But I knew that for free soloing El Cap, it was gonna be, it wound up taking me 4 hours on the wall, or a little less than that. And I thought it would take even more than that. And so, you can't just get all gung-ho and then go for hours at a time. Like, I knew that there would be moments where I would stop and I would pee and I would eat and drink and I would take my shoes on and off and things like that. And so anytime there are gonna be breaks like that, it's really hard to maintain that kind of mental, like, I'm going for it, but I'm just gonna have a little picnic for a moment and then I'll go for it again. It's like really hard to maintain that intensity. And so I knew that in order to do something like El Cap, I needed to move to a different level where it just felt normal, where it just wasn't scary anymore. And that's where broadening your comfort zone, sort of systematically expanding to the point where you're like, no, this is a normal day. And so that was like ton of preparation, ton of training, ton of time on the wall. And so when I finally actually did the free solo, It's like, it's a normal Tuesday or whatever. It's just kind of like, oh, it's like today I'm ready for this, and this feels comfortable, and this feels, and obviously I was still a little bit nervous, and walking up to the base El Cap with no rope is still pretty intimidating. But on that day, it was like, this feels like the appropriate thing, like it feels normal.
Did the cameras being there, did that increase the anxiety at all, or no?
That made it all way more stressful for sure.
Really? Yeah.
Though interestingly, in retrospect, it probably actually made me more prepared for the actual climb.
Okay.
Just because, so El Cap is like the notable free solo that I've done that's on film, but I've done something like 35 routes like that. And of those, maybe 10 or 12 have been documented in some way, and the rest, like say 20 something, I've just been out by myself in the mountains. And in general, I think I'm much more willing to push the envelope a bit when I'm totally alone. But when other people are watching you, it's a little bit more embarrassing to be like right on the edge. You're sort of like, oh, I'm trying to demonstrate a degree of control. Like I want to look okay while other people are filming me.
Yeah.
And I think that in a way that encouraged me to basically practice more, to prep more. Because I knew that there'd be a bunch of folks watching, and I was like, I don't want to look terrible while I do this. I'm gonna like make sure I do it really, really well. And I know that sounds stupid because it's like obviously your life's always on the line, but when you're by yourself, you're just kind of like, I'll just go for it. Like it'll be fine. But when other people are watching, you're like, maybe I shouldn't push it that close because it makes everyone else uncomfortable.
So you've actually spoken about this concept of elective hardship. Can you just talk a little bit about what that is and how you intentionally seek out challenges, or how you have for yourself, and how that practice has contributed to sort of a sense of purpose and fulfillment for you?
Yeah, big question. But I mean, I think, I'm a professional rock climber. Like that is by very definition elective hardship. Like I'm choosing to do something difficult for no real reason other than the fact that I love doing it. Mm-hmm. It's not like I need to be a rock climber, but I love climbing. I'm inspired by it. I choose to push myself in that way. And like I was just saying with El Cap, I wouldn't have been able to do the things that I've done without consistently pushing myself, without consistently doing things that were a little bit beyond what I'd done before, that were just a little bit harder, a little bit bigger, different conditions, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I mean, really I've spent my whole life sort of choosing to do something that's just a little bit harder for me. And partially that's because I like new experiences, I like learning, I like growing, and that's all, you have to keep challenging yourself like that if you want to get better at the things.
Do you think of yourself as a competitive person? So it's somebody who's operating at the absolute peak of, Michael Jordan is, when he's playing, whatever he's playing basketball, he's playing golf, he's like, I'm going to beat that other person. That's just the way I'm wired. But do you look at the rock and say, like, I'm going to beat that, or I'm going to cheat death, or like, or what gets you motivated in that way?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think I've always sort of thought of myself as like, oh, I'm a competitive person. But I said that to somebody recently, and they're like, no, you're not a competitive person at all. Yeah. And the thing is, I think I've actually always been a very driven person. Like I'm motivated and I want to do things. But actually, I don't really care that much about winning or losing. And like if I play ping pong with somebody, I'm like, oh, I just love playing well and like having a nice game with somebody. So I'm not really competitive. And I think that's actually one of the things that I really love about climbing, and that has sort of spilled over into my worldview more broadly, is that it's, I don't know what the term for it is, sort of an infinite, it's not zero sum. Like in climbing, there's no winner or loser. Everybody can win. Like, if you go out and you try hard, like you can succeed if you work at something hard enough. And when you go out with your partner, you're hoping that they succeed on their project that day too, and that, you both can come home as winners. And so I think that spending my whole life as a climber, I'm kind of like, we can all succeed if we work hard at it. Whereas I think a lot of other sports, you're kind of like, I want to beat the other guy. And I'm like, I'm just not into that.
That's a super cool concept, actually. That's great. Interestingly, and they touch on this a little bit in the documentary, but you set up this foundation all the way back in 2012, when you were not only, relatively very young, but also didn't have the kind of sort of fame that you enjoy today, and probably, I dare say, didn't have that much money to like put towards this whole thing. And so just talk to us a little bit about how you got involved philanthropically and how you thought about the foundation.
It's slightly embarrassing to even talk about philanthropy in this kind of room, but yeah, so at that time I was living in my car. And I mean, I lived in a van for maybe 11 years, just traveling the American West basically, climbing full time, which is more normal than it might sound for climbers. It's a way to follow the weather and climb full time. But basically, I was living in my van. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I was living my best life. I was climbing well. I was really psyched. And I started making more than I felt like I needed. And I was kind of like, I should do something useful with this. And then I also sort of recognized that I was never going to make that much money, because as a professional rock climber, your earning potential is quite low. And I figured if I was going to donate philanthropically, I should do it through a public-facing foundation, just because I knew that my potential to bring in money was much higher than my potential to actually earn money. Mm-hmm. And so even back then, and at the time, I was slightly embarrassed by it because I'm like, it's not big numbers, it's not changing the world. Just kind of like, oh, I'm just doing my best to do something. But it seemed like the right thing to do, and so I started there and have built up steadily. And I'm glad I did because we've been steadily ramping for a decade that way, and now actually having a much bigger impact.
It's amazing, and so the focus of the foundation. Talk a little about it. In the video, in the documentary, you talk a little bit about your travels being an inspiration for sort of what some of the mission of what the foundation is all about. But just talk a little bit about the foundation's mission.
Yeah, so the Honnold Foundation supports solar projects around the world, so energy access, both domestically and abroad, and that's partially because as a climber, I've been on expeditions all over the world, and I've certainly seen the lack of energy access. I mean, there are almost 1 billion people on our Earth without access to power. And yet also as a rock climber, I've always cared about the environment because obviously I'm spending all my time in the most beautiful places on Earth, and you're like, oh, I love the natural world, I want to see the natural world protected. And energy access, I think, is basically the first step of sort of development. I think it's the most important way to meet people's basic needs and allow them to care about the world around them. And so when I started the Honnold Foundation, I was looking for environmental projects that improve standard of living in some way, things that help the environment and also helped human communities. And those types of projects were often solar projects. And so after several years of supporting solar in various places, we just explicitly made it our mission statement that we're supporting solar projects.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk about any of the specific projects that the foundation has funded that you're proud of or that you think are interesting or you'd share?
Yeah. I mean, there's a wide variety, and that's part of the reason that we are supporting solar projects is because there's so many add-on benefits to solar. I mean, it's like obviously energy access, but then how you use the energy access or the community development alongside the sort of like job creation, things like that around solar. It's like there are many other things that can be quite useful. So actually last night, the foundation hosted an event at the MoMA where we, I don't think we premiered the film, we sort of like showed a sneak peek of this film that one of our partners is working on, but basically with solar-powered boats in the Amazon. And it's interesting because transportation on the rivers is normally powered by diesel engines, et cetera, but basically the further you get upriver, basically the more remote the communities are, the more expensive it is to get there. And if it's too expensive, then they're open to cutting roads through the forest, and then that opens up a whole thing for mining, deforestation, and basically exploits the forest in different ways. And so by converting to solar-powered boats, they can keep transportation costs low and then prevent cutting roads. It's this whole like interesting thing that you never would have thought of. Mm-hmm. And we've supported a bunch of projects like that around the world where people are using solar in really creative ways to help both their community and the natural world in ways that you never would have guessed. I mean, and that's why we're supporting community organizations in places like that, because it's not as if anyone on the Honnold Foundation team ever would have thought up an idea like that. Mm-hmm. But the local communities were like, this is what we need to both live better ourselves and ideally protect the area around us.
So it fits the mission. But then how do you source multiple of those over many years? I mean, how do most of these ideas come to the group, basically?
We just do an open call for grant applications. And I mean, the one nice thing about, I don't know if it's a nice thing, but because I don't make that much money as a rock climber, we're only able to fund a small fraction of the incoming proposals that we get, but that means that we get to fund the very best proposals because we get hundreds of applications and then we choose the very best ideas, like say these solar powered boats. We're like, oh, this is really interesting. And we can choose to take a little more risk than maybe conventional philanthropists often do. We can see a project like that, and with the solar powered boats, we basically funded the pilot project. We're like, oh, this could be amazing. And we funded the pilot project, and as a result, they've now sourced, basically it works, and they've now pulled funding from much bigger sources, and they're scaling up quite a bit. And they just had a replica project in Southeast Asia, or in the Pacific, I guess. But basically, we can take those kinds of chances. We're like, we're small, we can do cool things.
And the whole decision to give, is it 1/3 of your annual income that you put towards the foundation, or is that how it at least started? I don't know if that's.
Yeah, no, it still is basically. That's how it started, and my income has gone up obviously with the success of the film and things like that. But I've just continued to give about 1/3 of my income every year, and so now that means that my contribution to the Honnold Foundation basically covers all the overhead. It's just that's just the way it works out. But basically, I support the actual foundation itself, and then everything else we earn goes straight to projects.
And was there any significance to that number of 1/3, or was that just sort of what felt right at the time?
I mean, I lived in a car. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I was kind of like, I don't need that much, and it just seemed appropriate.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, and I've seen through the Honnold Foundation projects, the projects that we're funding have a tremendous impact on the quality of life in these communities. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, I can sit on a little bit of extra money and which literally does nothing for my life, because day to day I'm going to do the same things. I'm going to eat the same food. I'm going to go to the same places. Like it doesn't make any difference. but when I give that to some of these projects in different communities, that like literally, they can have access to energy the first time. They can have light after dark for the first time. It's like some of it can be totally transformative experiences.
It's inspirational. It really is. Alex, I just find the things that you've done in your life both incredibly impressive and inspirational all at once. And so, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it. Yeah.